Bay Vinyl community, this is Chris. Excuse me. I recently watched some videos related to CalicoSilver's thread about A to Z albums that, your favorite album by your favorite artist for each letter of the alphabet. So I thought I would do that. I was interested in the other videos that I saw. And this gave me a chance to redo an earlier video that I did that was related to Hannah the Omaha Introvert's channel, where she wanted to, ask people to show their 20 favorite artists, which I did, and then I realized that, okay, these are my 20 favorite that I think that I like, but when I actually went back and did some analysis of that, based on number of albums that I had or recordings, there was quite a difference. Like, only 6 of the 20 were reflected when I checked the, preference of the number of albums that I had for the artist. So even though I may have liked a particular album better, if I went back and looked and saw, okay, how many of these albums or how many recordings do I have by a particular artist, then that would have changed things significantly. So this gives me a chance to correct that, and of course some of it's still subjective, but a lot of it is more based on numbers and how I have actually collected things. But before I get started, the first thing is, in preparation for this video, I was looking at some albums or some artists and cataloging things, and I tilted one a different way than normal, and this 45 single popped up or fell out of the album sleeve. I didn't realize that I had this, but David Bowie from the soundtrack of Cat People, the single Putting Out the Fire. So this was a unexpected bonus, because I didn't even know I had this single, but it showed up when I was looking at things. And then recently, again, not related to this particular video, but I recently went to a garage sale in the area, and this album here was, or this book, Graham Nash, Wild Tales. So I had to spend 50 cents to buy this. And, there was a younger couple and then an older guy, and it turned out this was, everything I picked up was related to the older guy's stuff. This book, I think there were a couple other books that I got. They weren't musical related, but that one was, one that I thought would be of interest to people. So to get into the Cosmic Silver, I think that was his name. If not, I will correct it in the notes. But for each letter of the alphabet, your favorite artist, and then your favorite album by that artist. So again, this doesn't reflect what I think I might like, but this more accurately reflects what I've actually collected, and then the favorite within that genre or within that group of albums. So I used digital recordings, CDs, albums, the total number that I had by a particular artist, to determine favoritism. and then, you know, I would decide which album I liked within that. So Kevin Ayers turned out to be the artist that I liked the most in the A's. So I selected this album here, Confessions of Dr. Dream and Other Stories by Kevin Ayers, and this is on the Island label. So that was my A's. And then in the B's, it turned out that the Byrds were my favorite artist. So I selected this reunion album by the Byrds from, I think, 1973. So even though this is the Byrds, they cover a bunch of Neil Young songs. Basically, I think side 2 is Neil Young. So I selected this as my favorite Byrds album, even though, you know, maybe Notorious Byrd Brothers or Sweetheart of the Rodeo would have been contenders for that. For C, John Cale turned out to be the favorite, so I selected this album, which is a white label promo. John Cale, The Academy in Peril. A, B, C, D. This one turned out like I thought it would. Deep Purple was the you know, favored artist based on the number of recordings that I had of all types. So Fireball is my favorite recording by Deep Purple on I think this is Warner Brothers, this green label. And then E turned out to be Brian Eno. So I selected this Eno and basically cluster association. Eno, Mobius, Rodelius, and Connie Plank. Bignungyung 2. This is on the Sky label. Yeah. So it's got some Eno-ish tracks, got some cluster-ish tracks. Yeah, it's overall very good. And Fairport Convention might be it, but turned out to be John Fahey. So I selected this one, Volume 1, Blind Joe Death. This is on the Tacoma label. John Fahey, acoustic guitarist. For G, it turned out to be Grateful Dead. You know, I'm not sure who I would have selected otherwise, but you know, American Beauty. This is the original master recording of American Beauty by the Grateful Dead. You know, they're two of their two Americana-ish albums. This one and Working Man's Dead. Yeah, that's the one I selected. So G, H, Jimi Hendrix, turned out to be the favorite, as it worked out for several people. So for this, I selected Jimi Hendrix at his best. You know, Are You Experienced is good, Electric Ladyland is good, Axis Bold as Love is good. You know, they may be all overplayed at this point, you know, 40 years later, 49 years later. So, Jimi Hendrix at his best. Volume 1, this is on the Sagapan label. Of course, you know, these are all things that I picked up at the discount store. So, Volume 2. And Volume 3, all early Jimi Hendrix prior to the Experience recordings. So that was H.I. It turned out to be Incredible String Band. So I picked Liquid Acrobat as the first Incredible String Band that I owned, though I owned it on 8-track tape, and eventually got to upgrade it to an album, to vinyl. So on this gatefold, Incredible String Band, you know, UK folk, H.I.J. Keith Jarrett turned out to be the favorite artist for the Jays, though I thought, you know, it could have been Jefferson Airplane possibly. May have hoped that it would have been the Jayhawks, but you know, I like Keith Jarrett, and you know, solo piano. So this one came with the booklet. This is Keith Jarrett Concerts. As opposed to the other, you know, this is a multi LP set. Maybe not the most popular version of Keith Jarrett multi-album sets, but yeah, that's the one I picked. And then, so that was J. So K turned out to be King Crimson, which was nice. You know, many people have mentioned the Kinks, which, you know, that would have been a good choice too, but ended up with King Crimson, Starless, and Bible Black. So it was kind of a toss-up between this one and, you know, the other one next to this, which I just remembered. Now I've just forgotten. Lark's Tongue and Aspic would be the other choice for favorite album on this Atlantic label. So King Crimson, Starless, and Bible Black. And L worked out like many other people. Led Zeppelin. So I picked Led Zeppelin 1. This one just has a good combination of long blues-based songs. You know, I Can't Quit You, Baby, Dazed and Confused, Communication Breakdown, which is probably the first song I ever heard by them. you know, on AM radio coming over, you know, scratchy and glitchy late at night. You shook me, babe, I'm gonna leave you. Just such classic tales or songs from them on the Atlantic label. So L, so M. Again, this worked out for Mountain. And this is my favorite Mountain album, Nantucket Sleigh Ride. With that Gail Collins artwork there. The title track is just killer. Plus several others on here. Animal Trainer and the Toad. This is on Windfall Records. I just saw, I think it was somebody's video where they recently picked that up at an estate sale. MN, so N turned out to be Nico of the Velvet Underground. So hopefully on the self-imposed additional rules, I don't show a Velvet Underground album later. But so I picked this Nico. This is The End, which she did several albums with The End included on them. You know, powerful song, but this might have been the first one that she did on the Island label. O turned out to be Buck Owens. So many of these selections turned out to be, you know, classic rock, classic country, you know, rather than, you know, what I think I liked. This is what actually showed that I liked. So Buck Owens sings Harlan Howard on the Capitol label. So that was the O. The P, again, that one worked out like some other people. Pink Floyd. So my favorite Pink Floyd album is Metal. I mean, the first two are great. Ummagumma is great. But for some reason, this is the one I prefer. Pink Floyd Metal. On the Harvest label. Q was Quicksilver. So, you know, hard to pick a favorite Quicksilver album. They're all pretty strong, but Just for Love, I don't know if this turned out to be, a lot of favorite albums turn out to be the first album you acquire. So that might have been the case here. Not, I didn't go back and check, but Quicksilver, Just for Love. Yeah. On Capitol. QR, so again we're following the you know, classic rock album theme. So Rolling Stones, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, I picked as my favorite. Again, that's, you know, really hard to say. on London. I think I had a 8-track of this, 8-track tape, so got to listen to it in the car a lot. Strong version of Midnight Rambler in here, Love in Vain, Stray Cat Blues. Side 1 is just really strong. Rolling Stones Live, Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. And again, we get to stay in the classic rock vein. So Spirit turned out to be the S favorite artist, and I selected Spirit Feedback. Do I like the first several? I like 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus. That's great. But this one is pretty memorable. This was just after Dr. Sardonicus, and Spirit exploded, multiple ways. Randy California went off and did an album. Jay Ferguson went off and did an album. Ed Cassidy did this album. And I don't remember if there was one other one or not, but they all turned out great albums. Captain Copter and the Twirly Birds, that was one done at the same time. Jojo Gunn was another one done at the same time. They're all great. But, with the name Spirit, I would pick this one. And T. Richard Thompson. So I selected this one here, vocal and acoustic guitar. This one's called Small Town Romance. On Hannibal label. So Richard Thompson, this is post Richard and Linda Thompson, which they put out several great albums too, but I'm selecting this one here for the T's, and then for the U's, Uriah Heep turned out to be the preferred album or preferred artist, so I picked Salisbury as my favorite. Demons and Wizards is great. Several, the first several are all good, but so on Mercury, maybe this is the most progressive of them. I'm not sure why, but this is my favorite of the Uriah Heep albums. UV, Townes Van Zandt. Turned out to be the V. So I selected At My Window. Townes Van Zandt. Folk Country, Sugar Hill label. Singer-songwriter. From the Texas area. So that was V, UVW. My preferred artist was Doc Watson. So again, this might have been my very first Doc Watson, elementary Dr. Watson. I had a cassette of this, so I could stick this in at night and fall asleep by it. So that may have been it. He does a great version of Summertime, the George Gershwin tune, on the Poppy label. Elementary Doc Watson. WX. So, Ecstasy was the favorite artist. So here's Ecstasy English Settlement. This is the single LP US version on the Epic label. And then here's the double UK version. This one is on the, just a moment as I force my way into this. It opens from the top. So there's the label for this version. 2 LP set. English Settlement, XTC. And then, as a lot of other people have shown, Y turns out to be Neil Young. So everyone knows this is Nowhere. On Reprise. So just a strong album, side 2 with the, just, so many good songs on this. Cinnamon Girl, Down by the River, Cowgirl in the Sand. And then finally, Z, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. So again, this might go back to the first album that I by these guys. In the discount bin at the G.C. Murphy's or whatever the 5 and dime was. Absolutely free. On the Verve label. So, Mothers of Invention. So, that was my, A to Z favorite artist, favorite album, based on actually calculating the number of albums that I had by each artist, rather than just thinking, okay, this is the one I prefer, this is what I want to show. So, a little bit of structure to it, and to top it off, or to bring it all together, the Mandarin Chief. So this is a black, Imperial Black IPA with Mandarin oranges by Back 40 Beer Company. So everybody, thanks. Cheers. Thanks to all the people that participated in this, and CalicoSilver, if I'm remembering the correct person that initiated this. Otherwise, I'll correct it in the comments. So thanks, everybody. See you later.